Hey there guys, Next Gen Striker here, back again for another video, and today we're going to be talking about Swamp Thing, which is going to be premiering on the DC Universe, which is DC's streaming platform, which is going to be launching this year. We assume at the end of the year. We're not entirely sure. It should be coming out alongside Young Justice Outsiders, Harley Quinn, and Titans. But, you know, fingers crossed for more details. Obviously, when Comic-Con rolls around this year, we should be getting more information. Trailers, cast interviews, panels, all that good stuff. Some new images, yada yada. And it's going to be very exciting for all of us comic book fans and DC fans because more good stuff. As long as it's good, we're all going to like it, right? But Swamp Thing is a character that it's a little bit risky for DC because, you know, Harley Quinn, well-known character. Titans, they're very well-known, very popular. Young Justice, very popular, very well-known, right? Swamp Thing is kind of the odd man out of these new series because he's a little bit more niche. Now, obviously, some people are big fans of him. He has some really great comic stories and stuff like that. He's been in at least one animated... he's been in 2 animated films I can think of. I don't know if he's been in any more. He's been in, I believe, at least 1 series so far, animated series, but nothing live action. So, the mainstream, for the most part, hasn't been all too exposed to him, right? So, aside from that, and aside from being in Injustice 2, not a lot of people really know a lot about Swamp Thing. But what really has me excited about this series is the fact that James Wan is attached to this thing. And James Wan is a very, very good sign of things to come. Because James Wan, awesome dude, does a lot of good work. So just to go down the list here of the things that he's worked on. Well, actually, before I do that, let me just say that Swamp Thing is supposed to be like a horror series. So it's going to be like more scary, stuff like that. Which is a perfect fit for James Wan, so let's just go down the list here. And, you know, just some things that he's directed. So, the first Saw he directed. Let's see, Dead Silence and Death Sentence. I'm not familiar with those. I think maybe they're indie films. Not sure on that. Doggy Heaven is another one I'm not too familiar with. Insidious and The Conjuring. 2 big ones, right? Insidious Chapter 2. Fast and the Furious 7. The Conjuring 2, and Aquaman. So Aquaman is the first DC property that he worked on, obviously. But he's been with Warner Brothers, and he's been making some great things. And if you look at a lot of the things that he's made, it's horror stuff, right? So I'm assuming that this whole thing with James Wan came about when he was working on Aquaman, and DC approached him like, you know, you did some really great work on Aquaman, presumably. I mean, we don't know because Aquaman's not out yet, fingers crossed. But, you know, we really liked your work on Aquaman. How about you, make this Swamp Thing series with us? And, it'll be, more horror-based, and it'll be scary, and it'll be different. And I assume he just jumped on. He's like, okay, cool, I like horror stuff. And now that he's worked on DC Comics, it's like a natural fit for him. So I really look forward to that. In case you guys don't know, a lot of those films that he's worked on as of late have all been hits. People have really been enjoying them, and they're well received. So keep that in mind. We got a quality team member aboard DC Comics, finally, right? So hopefully that means Aquaman's going to be good, and hopefully that means Swamp Thing's going to be good. But I look for it to be very good. It has me very interested because personally, I do really like scary stuff, like scary movies, stuff like that. Love it. Eat it up. So for me, this is actually a series that I'm very much looking forward to. Swamp Thing, again, not really a character that I care for all that much, but the fact that he's attached to it, the fact that it's going to be, horror-based, awesome stuff. Very much looking forward to it. So any of you that are scary fans, like you like that kind of stuff, this is going to be the series for you, definitely. And I do like that DC, with the DC Universe and the streaming service, is trying to make it dynamic. Like, Young Justice Outsiders. Now, obviously, that's Season 3 of Young Justice, but Young Justice is very different than Titans, which, we don't really know where they're going with Titans. Assumably, it's going to be a quote-unquote accurate representation of the Teen Titans, but, jury's out on that one. And then Harley Quinn is going to be The Wacky Adventures of Harley Quinn, which people love Harley Quinn, and it's animated. So we have 2 animated series, we have 2 live-action series here. But Swamp Thing, again, I very much see this series being very good. We don't really have a lot of details, unfortunately, on Swamp Thing. If I had to guess, they're going to pull a lot from the comics. I mean, obviously. But, see, the thing is, what comics are they going to pull from? If I had to guess, they're going to do the Alan Moore stuff, which is where he premiered, obviously. Those comics are very well received. People hold it up as like the standard of like top tier graphic novels. So I would imagine that's where they're going to pull from, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. So if they pull from that story, oh boy, you have a match made in heaven right there. Great story, great director. I don't think we actually know if James Wan is the director yet, but he is a producer on the series with great experience. So should be good stuff, hopefully. Now, this is something I did want to talk about, and I just remembered it. With Swamp Thing, now, a lot of people do not like when political stuff is thrown into their, their series, right? We watch these things to escape reality, more or less. So political and social issues, people aren't big fans of those. Although comics do touch on them somewhat. They have throughout the years. So a big thing with Swamp Thing is the environment. Swamp Thing is the protector of the green. He is environmentalist 101, obviously, because he is Mother Nature, more or less. So with that, expect that we might have an environmental message in this series. Now, as long as it's not heavy-handed, it's fine. Now, if they try and, push it too far, obviously people aren't going to be happy with it, but obviously he protects the green above all else, so it would kind of make sense. Just throwing it out there. I'm sure some of you kind of already realize this if you know anything about Swamp Thing, but, again, just throwing it out there. There might be an environmental message or two in the series, because he's just not that happy with mankind. Swamp Thing is not a guy who, he likes mankind, which could play into the horror aspect of it. Maybe, obviously he is kind of a creepy dude, especially if you saw him at night just come out of the ground, scary stuff, right? But that could play into it, he doesn't like humanity, okay? And, I don't know, that could be a thing for him. He could, he could scare people, or attack people, maybe go after the people that cause massive damage to the environment. I'm not too familiar with Swamp Thing, but I think that there could be a lot of interesting directions they take this character. Villains and all that kind of stuff. As far as a love interest, they probably will do a love interest because, they always do it with these comic book series. They have to have at least one, which is fine as long as they do it right. I don't know how they would do it, though, and there's a lot that we just don't know about this series yet, but I'm very optimistic about this series. Young Justice is obviously the most anticipated for me, but outside of that, I think this one has the highest chance to be a good series moving forward. DC, they are kind of hit or miss when they go outside of their safe zone, because sometimes they really knock it out of the park when they take a chance. Sometimes they really don't. People really like Constantine, although Constantine wasn't really popular enough to warrant another season, I guess. But they could reuse Constantine in this series. That's very likely. As well as the possibility of having Justice League Dark or some semblance of that appearing early on, maybe season 2, and then by the end, maybe season 3, 4, beyond, they have a dark universe established, which would be very awesome, right? We could have Zatanna, Constantine, Deadman, all these different really cool characters that DC doesn't really get the time to toy around with, because if you guys remember, Justice League Dark supposedly was a movie that DC wanted to make, but it's been in production forever, and it's just never really gotten anywhere. So this could be DC's opportunity to build a dark universe and use a lot of those characters that they're never really going to use in a TV series or in a live action movie or anything like that. So I think that'd be really cool. And they could, they could make it Justice League Dark on the digital platform, make it a more of an independent feeling kind of movie, more low budget. And I think James Wan would love it, and the other people attached to the series. So A lot of different things to discuss here. I mean, we pretty much know little to nothing, but still, I think the series is going to be awesome. I think it has a lot going for it. And the fact that it's just breaking away from a lot of the more traditional stuff and it's going to be different, I think really does give it a good chance to be great. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Thumbs up if you like, subscribe if you like, comment below what your thoughts are on this series. Make sure to follow me on my social media, which will be linked somewhere down below. That's all I have for now.